AITA for ruining my brother's wedding over a seating chart? This all started about 6 months ago when my older brother, Ben, got engaged to his fiancée, Clara. I was genuinely happy for him, and I even offered to help plan a few things here and there, mostly because I have a knack for organization and event planning. Ben and Clara insisted they had it handled, which was fine. I just thought I could be useful if they needed me. The problem started with the seating chart. Ben and Clara asked me if I could help finalize it because, apparently, Ben's fiancée had no idea how to organize it without creating chaos. I agreed, thinking it would be a simple enough task. They gave me the list of guests, and I started organizing tables, keeping in mind family dynamics, friendships, and work relationships. While going through the list, I noticed some patterns. Ben's college friend group included a few people who have a reputation for being incredibly obnoxious when they drink, and they always try to dominate conversations and activities. Clara's side had some cousins who tend to get into political arguments, which, as we all know, never goes well during family gatherings. Then there was my family's side, which is generally polite but has some sensitive members who get anxious around large crowds. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding because of her guest list rules. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who has been planning her wedding for about a year now. When she got engaged, she immediately started talking about how she wanted her wedding to be exclusive and intimate, but with a few twists. Her fiancé, Mark, 27M, is from a very large family, so the combination of both sides of the family made planning a wedding complicated. From the start, Emily made it clear that she wanted to keep costs down, but also that she didn't want certain family members there. She specifically said she didn't want cousins from her dad's side because of some old family drama. My parents and I were a bit concerned, but we didn't say much because we knew it was her day. A few months into planning, Emily told me she wanted to have a smaller wedding, but with a dream venue, which was very expensive. She asked if my partner and I could contribute financially. I was hesitant because while I love Emily, I'm not in a financial position to pay thousands for a wedding. However, I decided to offer $1,000 as a gift, thinking that was fair and generous considering my budget. Here's where things got complicated. Emily started sending me long messages about her guest list policies, which basically meant that anyone she didn't personally like, or anyone who might bring drama, was not allowed to attend, even if it was a close family member. She explicitly said my boyfriend at the time couldn't come because she didn't like him, which I found hurtful and controlling. I tried to reason with her, saying that if I'm contributing to this wedding, I should be able to bring my partner of 6 years. Emily responded with a 30-minute voice note explaining why my boyfriend makes the vibe wrong, and that I don't want someone there who isn't 100% supportive of my choices. I was taken aback. I asked her if I could bring just one other friend instead, thinking it was a compromise. She said no because you can't invite anyone I haven't approved. I pointed out that this is my money too, so I feel like I should have some say. She said, "You are contributing, but it's still my wedding, so my rules come first." At this point, I decided that if I couldn't even bring the person I've been with for 6 years, I was not comfortable giving her money for the wedding. I sent her a message explaining that I couldn't contribute financially under these conditions and that I would happily attend, but I would not pay for a wedding where I'm treated like an outsider in my own family. The fallout was immediate. Emily accused me of being selfish, controlling, and trying to sabotage her dream day. She said I was overreacting and that she had the right to decide who could be at her wedding. My parents are caught in the middle. They agree she has the right to invite whoever she wants, but think I'm being harsh by refusing to contribute. Things escalated when my mom tried to mediate. She told me I was technically right, but asked if I could at least reduce tension by offering some money anyway. I explained that any money I gave would feel like I'm buying my own exclusion, which I can't do. My dad thinks I should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. Emily hasn't spoken to me for over a month now. She's going full wedding mode on social media, posting about the perfect guest list and tagging everyone except me. My friends are split. Some think I'm justified, while others think I'm making a bigger deal out of this than necessary. I genuinely feel like I'm being reasonable. I don't expect her to bend her rules for me, but I also can in good conscience financially support a day where I and the person I'm committed to aren't welcome. The weird part is, I actually want to be there to celebrate her, but under the current circumstances, it feels impossible. I don't know if I'm overreacting or if I'm justified in standing my ground. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding because of her guest list rules. Character count, 6,472 if you want. I can also create a second version that's slightly longer, closer to 7,000 characters, with extra emotional tension, social media drama, and family conflicts to make it even more popular Reddit story style. Do you want me to do that? AITA for not letting my sister's boyfriend stay at our house when she comes over, even though she claims I'm being unfair. I, 27F, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who has always been a bit impulsive and dramatic. We grew up relatively close, but as adults, our lifestyles and boundaries have diverged significantly. I live with my fiancé, James, 29M, in a 2-bedroom apartment. We've worked hard to create a space that feels calm and safe, especially after both of us had stressful jobs and needed a home that felt like a retreat. Emily started dating Tom about 6 months ago. At first, I tried to be polite and welcoming, but the situation quickly became stressful. Tom is loud, messy, and extremely opinionated about everything. The first time Emily and Tom came over together, he rearranged our living room furniture without asking, left dirty dishes on the counter, and commented on how small and cramped our apartment was. I politely asked him not to move things around and to clean up after himself, but he shrugged it off and said, "I'm just making it better for everyone." Emily laughed nervously but didn't correct him. I brushed it off at the time because I wanted to avoid conflict, but it left a bad impression. Over the next few visits, things escalated. Tom started inviting himself over whenever Emily wanted to see me, sometimes showing up at our door unannounced. He would bring friends, eat our food, and loudly complain about minor things in our apartment, like the decor or the dishes. I tried setting boundaries politely, telling Emily that I preferred to know in advance if she was bringing anyone and that she needed to communicate that with Tom. Emily agreed, but rarely enforced it. She often shrugged and said, "He's harmless. Don't be so uptight." About a month ago, Emily told me she wanted to come over for a weekend and spend some time with me and James. I asked if Tom would be joining. She said yes, and I explained that we weren't comfortable having him stay at our apartment because of his behavior during previous visits. She got upset and said I was being unfair and that she couldn't just hang out without him. She argued that because they're in a serious relationship, she should be able to include him in our time together. I tried to compromise. I offered to meet them both for dinner elsewhere, or we could hang out at a park or cafe, but she insisted she wanted to be at our home. I explained again that the apartment is small, our routine is important, and past behavior suggested it wouldn't be pleasant to have Tom stay. She accused me of not trusting her judgment and of being controlling, which felt frustrating because I wasn't controlling her. I was simply protecting my living space and boundaries. A week later, Emily came over without telling us in advance. I answered the door, and as expected, Tom was with her. He immediately started making loud jokes about our furniture and criticized how we organized our books and kitchen supplies. I calmly told him that I didn't want him staying over again and that we needed to respect our rules. He laughed and said, "Oh, come on, it's just one night," while Emily looked uncomfortable. I repeated that no, he wasn't staying, and Emily started arguing with me in front of him, saying I was ruining her visit and making things awkward. Eventually, I told Emily she could come in, but Tom had to leave. She stormed out angrily, saying that I was selfish and that she didn't want to see me anymore if I was going to act like this. I felt awful, but at the same time, I know that letting him stay would have caused weeks of tension in our apartment, especially with James, who agreed with me that boundaries are necessary. Since then, Emily has been cold in texts and calls. She posts vague messages on social media about how some people care more about things than family, clearly directed at me. Mutual friends have messaged me, saying I should just let her have her boyfriend to avoid family drama. I've explained that my apartment is our personal space, that Tom has repeatedly disrespected it, and that I'm willing to hang out in neutral locations, but no one seems to agree with me. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for wanting to protect my home and for not giving Tom free rein to treat it however he wants. I want to have a relationship with Emily and maintain our friendship, but I also feel strongly that my boundaries and my fiance's comfort in our space come first. Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at our apartment when she comes over, even though she claims I'm being unfair and selfish. AITA for confronting my brother about his parenting choices, even though it caused a massive family fallout. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger brother, Tom, 28M. We grew up in a middle-class household with two loving parents, but our approaches to life diverged significantly after we became adults. Tom has always been a little unconventional in his thinking, sometimes to the point where I question his judgment, but I always try to be supportive because family is important to me. Our relationship has always been rocky, mostly because Tom doesn't take criticism well, and I can be very direct, but we share enough happy memories that I thought the occasional disagreement was normal. The problem started about a year ago when Tom and his wife, Jenna, 27F, had their first child, a daughter named Lily. From the moment she was born, Tom and Jenna's parenting style immediately raised red flags for me. They were extremely rigid about certain things, like insisting on very specific diets for a 6-month-old and using unconventional sleep training methods that seemed unsafe. I know every parent has their own style, but some of their choices seemed objectively risky. I didn't voice my concerns right away because I didn't want to interfere, and I assumed they would figure things out. The situation escalated during a family gathering 6 months ago. Tom and Jenna were discussing Lily's feeding schedule, and they mentioned giving her herbal supplements that I knew were not recommended for infants. I gently asked why they were doing that, and Jenna said that her cousin swore by it and that she trusted her advice. I tried to explain that giving a 6-month-old certain herbs could be dangerous, and that she should consult a pediatrician first. Tom immediately got defensive and told me that I didn't understand because I wasn't a parent and that they had their own research. I tried to stay calm, but I pressed the point, emphasizing that even well-meaning advice could be harmful if it's not evidence-based. The discussion spiraled out of control. Tom accused me of trying to control their parenting and told me I had no right to lecture them. Jenna started crying and accused me of insulting her as a mother. My parents intervened, and the conversation ended with everyone frustrated and tense. I left feeling like I had done the right thing by speaking up, but also worried about the damage I had caused. Over the next few weeks, I tried to reach out to Tom privately, hoping to smooth things over. I sent a message explaining that my only concern was Lily's safety and that I wasn't trying to attack their choices, but he didn't respond. Then, a month ago, I went to visit them at their house. I brought some homemade baby food for Lily, thinking it would be a nice gesture. As soon as I arrived, Tom shut the door and told me he didn't want me in their house. He said that I had been overstepping boundaries and that I needed to respect their parenting decisions. Jenna also told me not to contact them unless it was an emergency. I was shocked because I had only wanted to help. Things got worse when I saw on social media that Tom and Jenna were continuing to use some of the questionable methods I had warned about. A few days ago, I received a message from my mom saying that Tom was asking the whole family to cut me out completely. She said that he feels attacked and that everyone who sides with me will be alienating him. I feel trapped because I genuinely care about Lily and I don't want to see her put at risk, but at the same time, I don't want to lose my relationship with my brother and the rest of the family. Yesterday, I called my parents to talk about it, and they expressed frustration with me. They said I should have been more tactful and that I caused a huge rift. I tried to explain that I was only trying to prevent potential harm, but they kept insisting that I was too aggressive and that it was now affecting family holidays, birthdays, general communication. I feel torn. I know I could have approached the situation differently, but I also feel that children's safety should come before maintaining peace at all costs. My friends are split. Some say I did the right thing by standing up for what's safe, and others say I should have stayed quiet and let them learn through experience. I honestly don't know if I overstepped or if I was justified in my concern. I love my brother, and I hate that our relationship is essentially on pause. I also love Lily and worry about her well-being. I'm debating whether I should try to reach out again, apologize for my tone, but reiterate my concerns, or just let things be and hope they come around. So Reddit, AITA for confronting my brother about his parenting choices, even though it caused a massive family fallout. AITA for refusing to host my cousin's wedding in my backyard after he assumed I would. I, 32M, live in a suburban house with a reasonably sized backyard. It's nothing fancy, but it's perfect for summer barbecues, small gatherings, and hosting friends. I work long hours as an architect and value my home as a place to decompress. My extended family knows I live here, and I've hosted a few birthday parties or casual get-togethers over the years, but nothing massive. My cousin, Derek, 30M, has always had a habit of assuming that other people's resources are for his convenience. Derek is charismatic and charming in a way that makes it hard to say no, but he has a history of overstepping boundaries and expecting family to accommodate him. He's been dating his fiancée, Megan, 29F, for 3 years, and recently they got engaged. About a month ago, Derek called me unexpectedly, all excited, and said, "Hey, so Megan and I were thinking, your backyard is perfect. Wouldn't it be great to have our wedding there? We could do it all outside. You wouldn't even have to do much. Everyone would love it." I was stunned. Hosting a wedding, even a small one, entails a lot more than not doing much. There's catering, chairs, tables, decorations, parking, neighbors, insurance, and cleaning up afterwards. I told him I was honored he thought of my home, but I wasn't comfortable hosting such a big event. Derek immediately brushed it off and said, "Come on, it won't be a big deal. We just need space for about 80 people. You have that space, right?" I explained that 80 people in my backyard would be chaotic, and I couldn't commit to hosting. I also mentioned that my lease and insurance might not even cover a large event like a wedding. Derek laughed and said, "Don't worry, it'll be fine. You could just move your furniture and it'll work." I tried setting boundaries. I told him I could help in other ways. I could recommend a venue, help with planning, or even assist with setup for a different location. He said that wasn't good enough. Derek insisted, "It would mean so much if you let us do this here. Your family, it's what family does." I reminded him that being family doesn't obligate me to host a large, expensive event in my personal space, but he continued to pressure me. Over the next week, he kept dropping hints and visiting my house to see how it would look. He measured my backyard, took photos, and even started drawing seating charts on scraps of paper while I was working. I told him firmly that I wasn't changing my mind, but he ignored me and started sending group messages to our extended family, asking if anyone else could help convince me to host. Then, he started bringing Megan into it. She texted me directly, saying, "We've already made so many plans around your yard, and it would be perfect. It's really disappointing you're saying no." I explained that I was happy to support their wedding in other ways, but my home isn't available. She accused me of being selfish and said that no one else in the family would have the backyard ready in time. My parents got involved after Derek told them I was holding the wedding hostage. They suggested I at least let him use the backyard for a day, but I explained that even a single day involves preparation, liability, and cleanup, and I wasn't willing to compromise my home or schedule. They said I was making it harder for him and Megan, and implied I was being unreasonable. The tension escalated when Derek threatened to just do it anyway. He said he would sneak in decorations and hire a caterer without telling me. I told him that would be trespassing and that I would have to call the authorities if he tried. He responded angrily, accusing me of being dramatic and ruining their dream wedding. Since then, Derek and Megan have barely spoken to me, and family gatherings have become awkward. They've framed me as the villain in group chats, and even subtly suggested I don't care about family. Friends are split. Some say I should just compromise to avoid conflict, while others say I'm completely justified in setting boundaries. I've been trying to maintain a relationship with Derek, but it's hard when he treats my home as if it's a public venue and assumes I should accommodate his plans. I feel guilty because I know he's excited about his wedding, but I also know that hosting an event of that size would be disruptive, expensive, and stressful for me. So, AITA for refusing to host my cousin's wedding in my backyard after he assumed I would. AITA for refusing to host my niece's wedding after she threatened to disown me. I, 38F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family. My older sister, Amanda, 42F, and I have never been particularly close. Our childhood was strained, to put lightly. She was always the golden child, straight A student, perfect athlete, and mom's favorite. I was the one who got lost in the shuffle, often feeling invisible. Despite this, I've always tried to maintain a civil relationship with her and, more recently, with her daughter, my niece, Lily, 27F. Lily has always been a bit dramatic. Growing up, she would often turn small disagreements into major arguments. I brushed it off as teenage angst and tried to be there for her when I could. In the last few years, she's grown into a successful, confident woman. She has a flair for the extravagant and is very passionate about her opinions. That being said, she can be very demanding and doesn't take well to being told no. Here's where the problem began. Last year, Lily got engaged to a man named Mark. They're both lovely people, and I wanted to support them. When they announced the wedding date, I started thinking about logistics, as weddings in our family are always big affairs. My sister, Amanda, who lives across the country, was excited about being involved but always relied on me to handle local arrangements since I live in the city where Lily and Mark are based. At first, I didn't think much of it. I offered to help coordinate vendors, venues, and even the guest list. But then Lily started dropping hints, or rather, demands, about the wedding. She wanted me to host the entire reception at my house. I live in a modest townhouse. It's comfortable for me, my partner, Alex, 40M, and our 2 kids, but it's not a mansion by any means. Hosting a wedding, which she claimed would have over 150 guests, seemed impossible. I explained to her that my home wasn't suitable for an event of that size. I suggested alternatives, renting a local hall, hosting a smaller rehearsal dinner at my house, or even helping her find an affordable venue. She brushed them all off and said that family homes are traditional and it's expected. I reminded her that no such tradition exists in our family. Our past weddings have been a mix of venues, from church halls to restaurants. The tension escalated when she sent me a list of requirements for hosting. It included catering for 150-plus people, renting tents, tables, and chairs, decorations. She picked out a separate area for children, on-site parking arrangements. When I told her I simply could not accommodate these requests in my home, she got upset. She said, "If you loved me, you would do this. I can't believe you're putting your comfort above me." I reminded her that love doesn't require destroying someone else's home and that I had offered alternatives, but she refused to hear it. Over the next few weeks, she started guilt-tripping me. She sent messages like, "I guess family isn't important to you. If you won't host, maybe you shouldn't come at all. I thought you were closer to me than this." My partner and I tried reasoning with her. Alex suggested that I just host a smaller pre-wedding gathering at my house and let the main event happen elsewhere. Lily's response was dramatic. "No, if you can't do it my way, I don't want you involved. Maybe it's better if you're not in my life at all." Things hit a breaking point when she called me in tears, accusing me of being selfish and saying that if I didn't host the wedding at my house, she would never speak to me again. I felt trapped, stressed, and honestly angry. I spent a few nights crying and debating what to do. On one hand, I love my niece and wanted to support her. On the other, this felt unreasonable, unfair, and frankly manipulative. After a lot of thought, I decided to stand my ground. I sent her a long message explaining that while I loved her and wanted to celebrate her wedding, I could not host the reception in my home. I reiterated my willingness to help plan, decorate, and manage other aspects, but the physical space and logistics were simply impossible. Her response was explosive. She called me heartless, controlling, and said, "If you can't even do this for me, you don't deserve to be part of my life. Don't bother coming to the wedding." At this point, my sister Amanda got involved. She said I should just give in, because Lily is sensitive and dramatic, but I felt that giving in would create a precedent of unreasonable expectations. I also didn't want to risk turning my home into a disaster zone for something I couldn't manage. We haven't spoken since that conversation. Lily is married now, and I was not at the wedding. I sent a gift, but I haven't heard from her, and I don't know if I ever will. My sister is upset with me, claiming I alienated my niece. I feel guilty sometimes, but mostly I feel like I made the only reasonable choice. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my niece's wedding after she threatened to disown me if I didn't. AITA for refusing to lend my car to my brother after he repeatedly disrespected my property. I, 32F, have a younger brother, Ryan, 28M, who I've always been close to. Growing up, we shared a lot, but as adults, our lifestyles and responsibilities are very different. I work in a corporate job, drive a relatively new car, and take pride in maintaining my things. Ryan, on the other hand, is more spontaneous and tends to be careless with other people's belongings. About a year ago, I bought a new car, a 2022 sedan I had saved for and carefully chose after months of research. I love it and take really good care of it. I clean it regularly, don't eat in it, and always make sure it's parked safely. Ryan has always been aware of how much I care about my car. Over the past few years, Ryan has asked to borrow my car multiple times. I usually said yes because I trust him as my brother and want to help him out when he needs it. The problem is that every time he borrows it, he returns it with some kind of damage or mess. Once he got a huge scratch on a passenger door and didn't tell me until I noticed it. Another time, he left a fast food bag and spilled soda in the back seat. Most recently, he took it on a trip with his friends, and when he returned, there was dirt and sand all over the floor and the seats had some permanent stains. Every time, he apologizes and promises it won't happen again, but the pattern repeats. Last week, Ryan called me and asked if he could borrow my car for the weekend because his friend needed a ride to a concert. I immediately said no. I explained that after everything that's happened, I don't feel comfortable lending him my car anymore. He got defensive and started accusing me of being overreacting and not supportive as a sibling. He said that it's unfair for me to refuse to help him when I'm in a position to do so. I try to explain that this isn't about being helpful or selfish. It's about respecting my property. I told him I would be happy to help him figure out another solution, like renting a car, taking a ride share, or asking another friend, but I could not lend my car. He then said that I was choosing my car over family, and that I was letting a material object come between us. After that, Ryan stopped talking to me for a few days. Our parents got involved, calling me and saying that I should be more understanding and generous. They reminded me that we're family and that I should help him out when he asks. I told them I understand that sentiment, but family doesn't mean letting someone repeatedly disrespect you or your belongings. I've been feeling guilty, though. Some of our mutual friends have messaged me, saying I might be too harsh and that maybe I could give him another chance. But I keep thinking about the stress and anger each time I've had to deal with damage or mess he left behind. The most recent incident alone cost me hundreds of dollars in cleaning and minor repairs. I'm proud of my independence and the things I've worked hard for, but I also don't want to ruin my relationship with Ryan. A few days ago, Ryan sent me a text saying, "I guess your car is more important than your own brother. Enjoy it while I'm stuck with nothing." I haven't responded because I honestly don't know what to say. I don't want to fight, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries and let him continue to disrespect my things. James, my partner, says I'm completely justified. He says I'm setting a boundary and that anyone who truly cares about me would understand that. I agree with him, but part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid and if I should give Ryan one last chance, maybe with strict conditions. At the same time, I fear that allowing him to borrow it again will just lead to more damage and stress. Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my car to my brother after he has repeatedly disrespected my property, even though he and our parents say I'm being selfish and putting a car above family. AITA for refusing to let my roommate's girlfriend move in permanently after she claimed she had no place else to go. I, 27M, live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my roommate, Jason, 28M, who I've been friends with since college. We've always had a decent arrangement. We split rent, utilities, and chores fairly, and we both respect each other's personal space. I value quiet and stability at home because I work from home as a software developer and also need downtime to recharge. Recently, Jason started dating a woman named Mia, 26F. At first, everything was fine. She came over a few times a week, and I got along with her well enough. She's friendly and funny, but she has a very different lifestyle from ours. She's loud, messy, and tends to assume people will accommodate her needs. About a month ago, Jason called me to tell me that Mia's apartment lease had fallen through unexpectedly. She was apparently being evicted due to unpaid rent and had nowhere to go. Jason said he wanted me to be okay with her staying temporarily, just until she gets back on her feet. I said I was willing to help for a short period, maybe a few nights or a week, but I was clear that I couldn't commit to a permanent arrangement. Mia moved in temporarily, but it quickly became clear that temporarily meant indefinitely. She started leaving her belongings in the living room, taking over the shared kitchen space, and expecting me to adjust my routine to accommodate her. Jason seemed happy to have her there, but I was growing increasingly uncomfortable. The breaking point came when Mia announced she wanted to stay permanently. She claimed she had no other options, and that moving in with Jason and me was the only reasonable solution. I reminded her that we had a 2-bedroom apartment, with one room being my office and one being our shared space, and that I wasn't comfortable giving up my personal space for an indefinite period. She became defensive and said, "Come on, Jason's paying, and you don't even have a girlfriend. You can manage." I explained that it wasn't about money. It was about boundaries, privacy, and my mental health. Jason told me he thought I was overreacting and that I should just compromise. I offered alternatives. She could stay with her parents temporarily, get a short-term Airbnb, or even split rent for another apartment nearby. She refused all options and continued insisting that she belonged here. Things got worse as Mia started making unilateral decisions in the apartment. She rearranged furniture, brought in more of her belongings, and even began cooking meals without asking. She assumed that if something was left in the fridge, she could eat it, and if something was on the couch, she could use it. I asked her politely to respect my things and space, but she dismissed my concerns and said I was too uptight. The tension exploded during a weekend when she invited friends over without consulting either of us. They stayed until late at night, playing loud music and leaving trash everywhere. I told her this was unacceptable, and she yelled that I was controlling and not a real friend. Jason seemed embarrassed but didn't intervene, saying he wanted to keep the peace. At this point, I told both of them that Mia could not stay permanently. I reminded them that I had been clear from the start that this was a temporary arrangement. Jason reacted angrily, accusing me of being selfish and unsupportive. Mia started crying and called me cruel, claiming I didn't care about her situation at all. They both started pressuring me, saying that if I didn't allow her to stay, it would ruin their relationship and make me seem like the bad roommate. I refused. I even offered to help Mia find a nearby apartment or help with a security deposit, but she refused to consider any alternative. Jason and Mia stopped speaking to me as much and started avoiding common areas. I felt tension every time I entered the apartment, and even though I tried to compromise, it's clear that they both feel I'm unreasonable. My parents and friends are split. Some say I should have just let her stay to avoid conflict, while others say I'm justified in protecting my personal space and mental health. I genuinely feel like I try to help without compromising my own boundaries, but I can't shake the feeling that I might be coming across as cold. So, AITA for refusing to let my roommate's girlfriend move in permanently after she claimed she had no place else to go. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for confronting my sister about her daughter's special treatment at family events. I, 28F, come from a pretty traditional family. My parents are very hands-on, deeply involved, and while they love all their grandchildren equally in principle, they have a tendency to unconsciously favor my sister's 32F daughter, Emma, 7. My sister has always been the golden child of the family, and she's used that dynamic to her advantage in subtle ways. But things came to a head recently, and I can't decide if I overreacted. For context, my niece Emma has a lot of quirks and sensitivities. She's on the spectrum, and while that doesn't excuse bad behavior, it does mean she sometimes has a hard time in social settings or group activities. I get that, and I genuinely try to accommodate her where I can. My sister, however, has taken it to another level. Over the past few years, she started manipulating family events to revolve entirely around Emma's needs and wants, often at the expense of the other kids and even adults. A few examples: in my birthday party this year, which we had at a small local hall with games and activities for kids, Emma refused to participate in any of the planned activities. Instead of encouraging her or letting her sit out, my sister demanded that we completely reorganize the schedule to include a quiet arts corner just for Emma, which meant half the kids missed out on the games they had been looking forward to. When my younger cousins, ages 5 and 6, got upset, my sister rolled her eyes and told them to understand Emma has special needs. Another incident happened during our annual family vacation. We were in a cabin for everyone in the family for a week, and this year my sister insisted that every meal be planned around Emma's dietary preferences, which are quite specific. She refused to eat anything unless we had a menu approved by her, and because my parents didn't want conflict, they complied. The rest of us ended up eating cold leftovers or making do with cereal because by the time her meals were ready, the rest of us were starving. When I expressed frustration, my sister snapped at me, saying I didn't understand the challenges of parenting a child with sensitivities and that I was being selfish. Things escalated at my niece's birthday party. Normally, we rotate who plans the party, but this year my sister insisted that she handle everything herself. She rented a special venue and curated activities that only Emma would enjoy, leaving most other children bored or left out. I mentioned that it might be nice to include some group games so all the kids could have fun, and she snapped, saying I didn't care about Emma's happiness. I tried to explain that I did care, but that other kids deserve consideration too. She ended up yelling at me in front of family members, calling me mean and unsupportive, and stormed out. I was fed up. After the party, I texted my sister and asked to meet. I wanted to discuss how her approach to family events often leaves everyone else frustrated and excluded. I tried to keep my tone calm, focusing on the impact on all the children, not just Emma. I pointed out that while I completely understand the need for accommodations, there's a way to include everyone without completely sacrificing the fun of the other kids or the adults who are hosting and paying for these events. The conversation quickly devolved. My sister accused me of attacking her parenting, said I had no idea what it was like to raise a child like Emma, and claimed I was jealous of her bond with her daughter. I reminded her that I wasn't questioning her love or devotion, but was addressing the way family events are handled. She then brought up a laundry list of grievances, including how I supposedly ignored Emma as a baby, how I didn't bond with her, and how I'm generally unsupportive. I tried to stay calm, reiterating that my concern was about the family dynamics and not Emma specifically. After our argument, my parents got involved. They told me I was too harsh and that I needed to respect that Emma has needs, implying that I was being insensitive. Meanwhile, other relatives have privately said they've noticed the same thing, but are too nervous to speak up. I feel like I'm the only one willing to confront the issue openly, but now I'm being framed as the villain for caring about fairness. I'm torn. On one hand, I understand that Emma's needs are valid and require consideration. On the other hand, I feel like the rest of the family is constantly being sidelined, and my sister refuses to find a balance. Family events shouldn't revolve entirely around one child, no matter the circumstances. I don't want to make my niece feel bad about being herself, but I also don't want to be labeled cruel or unsupportive for suggesting that accommodations don't have to come at the expense of everyone else. After our confrontation, my sister is barely speaking to me. She's posted vague statuses about people who can't support you in your struggles, and my parents keep subtly hinting that I need to apologize. I genuinely don't think I did anything wrong, but the family is divided, and I feel like everyone is quietly judging me. I'm starting to wonder if I overstepped by calling out her behavior, even though it's been affecting the whole family for years. So, AITA for confronting my sister about the way she prioritizes her daughter at family events? Or am I justified in wanting a fair balance that considers everyone's enjoyment, not just Emma's? Character count 6,527 if you want. I can also create a second version with slightly more dramatic tension and multiple side characters to mimic the viral Reddit style even more closely, keeping it under 7,000 characters. It would read like a story that truly blows up in the subreddit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he made a huge last-minute demand that I can't support? This all started a few weeks ago. My 29M younger brother, Alex, 27M, recently got engaged to his girlfriend, Claire, 26F. I've always been the responsible older brother in the family. My parents rely on me for things like organizing family events, babysitting my niece, and even mediating disputes when they arise. I'm not complaining. I care about my family, and I like helping out. But sometimes it feels like everyone just assumes I'll handle everything, without even asking if I want to. Anyway, when Alex and Claire announced their wedding date, I was genuinely happy for them. I offered to help with planning in small ways, like helping research venues and catering options. I wasn't involved in a huge capacity because, honestly, I have a demanding job, and planning weddings has never been my strong suit. But I thought I was contributing where I could. About a month before the wedding, Alex called me, sounding upset. He told me he needed me to do something important. He wanted me to officiate the wedding. I was caught off guard. I told him I didn't feel comfortable doing that because I'm not ordained or religious, and I have no experience with ceremonies. I suggested that they could hire a professional officiant, which is standard practice. That's when things started to go south. Alex blew up. He said it was the most important day of his life, and that I was the only one he could trust to make it meaningful. He reminded me of all the times I had helped him and implied that refusing this request meant I didn't care about him or his happiness. I tried to explain again that I genuinely couldn't do it, not because I don't care, but because I would be terrified of messing it up. I even offered to give a speech or do a reading instead, but he was adamant that he wanted me to officiate. I tried talking to my parents, hoping they could mediate. They were sympathetic, but ultimately said it was Alex's choice to insist. They advised me to just do it for family harmony. I felt uncomfortable with the idea of forcing myself into a role I couldn't perform well, so I said I needed to think about it. Over the next week, Alex kept texting me, sometimes multiple times a day, pressuring me. He started sending long messages about how disappointed he was and how he had been counting on me. He even mentioned that he might not invite me to the wedding if I didn't comply. That last part really hit me. It felt manipulative. Eventually, I told him I couldn't officiate, and I stood by that decision. I said I would attend as a guest, participate in the ceremony as myself, and maybe do a reading or help in other ways that felt manageable. Alex's reaction was immediate. He told me that if I wasn't going to officiate, he didn't want me at the wedding at all. I couldn't believe it. He was essentially giving me an ultimatum over something I had no experience doing and had expressed genuine discomfort about. I felt cornered, disrespected, and honestly hurt. I decided not to attend. I sent a long message explaining my reasons, apologizing for not meeting his expectations, and expressing my sadness that it had come to this. I also said I would be happy to celebrate with him after the wedding in any way that didn't involve me pretending to officiate. After I sent the message, my parents called me and expressed their disappointment. They said I was letting the family down and that I was being selfish. My extended family also found out, and I've been getting texts from relatives saying I should just get over it, and it's just one day. Meanwhile, Alex has been posting on social media, implying that I abandoned him on his big day. Some friends have even started asking me questions about the situation, and I don't know how much I should share without getting into a family drama debate. I feel terrible about missing the wedding, but I also feel like Alex crossed a line by pressuring me to do something I couldn't handle and then punishing me when I refused. I'm also frustrated with my parents for making me feel guilty for standing my ground. I don't want to be the villain here, but I also don't think I can compromise my own boundaries just to avoid conflict. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting, but another part of me thinks that attending the wedding under duress would have been worse for everyone involved. Now, a few weeks later, I'm dealing with mixed emotions. I miss my family and I hate the tension, but I also know I made a decision that respected my limits. Alex has blocked me on social media, and my parents are trying to fix things by having everyone talk about feelings and reconciliation, but I'm exhausted. I don't know if this can be repaired without one of us feeling like we lost. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he insisted I officiate when I genuinely couldn't and then disinvited me when I said no. Character count, 6,456. AITA for not letting my partner's family impose their rules on our wedding day. I, 31F, have been with my fiancé, Alex, 33M, for 6 years. We've always had a great relationship, but wedding planning has started to show some cracks in our dynamics, mainly with Alex's family. I never thought I'd be in this position, but it's gotten so stressful that I feel like I need an outside perspective. Alex and I got engaged last year, and we quickly agreed on a wedding that reflected both of our personalities. A small ceremony with close friends and family, followed by a casual reception. I come from a laid-back family, and I wanted the wedding to feel intimate and relaxed. Alex's family, however, has very rigid expectations. They have a reputation for being controlling and very traditional, especially when it comes to weddings. From the beginning, Alex's mother, Patricia, started giving unsolicited advice. At first, it was small things like insisting I wear a particular type of dress or that I must have certain colors in the floral arrangements. I politely thanked her for the suggestions, but insisted that Alex and I were making the final decisions. Patricia became passive-aggressive after that, hinting that our choices were strange or not proper for a wedding. Alex tried to smooth things over, but I could see he was caught between me and his mother. The real conflict began a few weeks ago when Patricia sent Alex a list of rules for the ceremony. She wanted certain relatives to have front row seats, even though we didn't plan it that way. Our best man and maid of honor to follow her guidelines for speeches, including a script she drafted. No music during the ceremony that she disapproved of, specifically songs she deemed modern or inappropriate. A request that I change part of my vows to include more traditional language, which she called respectful to the family. Alex showed me the list and said he didn't want to hurt his mother's feelings, but I immediately felt overwhelmed and frustrated. I explained that our wedding is about us, not about meeting her demands. I told Alex that I would not alter my vows or let her dictate the ceremony. We discussed options, and I suggested we politely decline her requests while finding ways to include the family in meaningful ways that don't compromise our vision. When Alex tried talking to his mother, she became furious. She accused me of disrespecting the family and said that Alex was letting me control everything and that he should stand up to me. She also implied that if we went forward with the wedding as planned, she might not attend. Alex felt torn because he doesn't want to upset his mom, but he also doesn't want to side against me. I tried to mediate by inviting Patricia and Alex's father for coffee to discuss things calmly. I hoped we could reach a compromise without anyone feeling excluded. Instead, she spent the entire time criticizing my choices, telling me I was selfish and ungrateful, and even called my family uninvolved and disrespectful. She stormed out halfway through and sent Alex a text afterward demanding that we fix things or she wouldn't come to the wedding. Since then, the tension has only increased. Alex's siblings have started sending him messages encouraging him to make mom happy and hinting that if he doesn't, I'm the one causing the problem. Some mutual friends have told me I might be overreacting and that we should just compromise a little to avoid drama. I feel like I'm being asked to sacrifice our values and boundaries to appease someone who has repeatedly shown controlling behavior. Alex says he understands my perspective and supports me, but he also feels guilty about his mom. I've suggested counseling sessions for premarital communication to help him navigate the family pressure, and he's open to it, but we still have a month until the wedding, and I can feel the stress mounting. I love Alex and want to marry him, but I refuse to let anyone, even family, impose rules on our wedding day that compromise what we want. I also worry about how this will affect our marriage if we start giving in to unreasonable demands before it even begins. Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my fiance's family impose their rules on our wedding day. Even though they claim I'm being disrespectful and causing family drama. AITA for refusing to cover my sister's rent after she moved back in with me unexpectedly. I, 30F, live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in the city where I've built my life. I work as a marketing manager, and I've always been careful with money, budgeting, and maintaining my personal space. I value my independence and my routines, and I've worked hard to create a home that feels stable and comfortable. My sister, Emma, 27F, has a history of unstable living situations. She's bounced between apartments, short-term rentals, and even staying with friends when she had financial troubles. Recently, she went through a breakup and had to leave her shared apartment because she couldn't afford the rent on her own. She called me in a panic, saying she had nowhere to go and that she needed to move in immediately with me. I was shocked. I told her I wasn't in a position to support her financially long-term, but I could let her stay temporarily, maybe a week, while she figured something out. She insisted that this was urgent and that a week wouldn't be enough. After hours of pleading and crying on the phone, I reluctantly agreed to let her move in temporarily. Emma arrived the next day with her belongings and her cat. At first, everything seemed manageable, but it quickly became apparent that temporarily meant indefinitely. She expected me to adjust my schedule to hers, including waking up early to let her cat out, sharing my food, and even doing her laundry. I tried to be accommodating, but I felt my personal space and routines slipping away. A week turned into 2, and she still hadn't made any progress finding a new place. She started asking me to cover part of her rent, citing that she didn't have enough money until her next paycheck. I told her I couldn't afford to pay her rent. I already pay for my own apartment, bills, and savings. She became upset, claiming I was being selfish and unsupportive. I suggested alternatives. She could ask our parents for help, look for a cheaper place, or find a short-term rental or sublet. Emma dismissed all options, saying that none of them were convenient or reasonable, and that my apartment was the only solution. She also started making unilateral decisions, like rearranging furniture, leaving her things all over the apartment, and inviting friends over without asking me. The situation escalated when she asked me to let her stay for another month and implied that if I didn't help cover rent, I was forcing her onto the streets. I reminded her that I never agreed to a permanent arrangement and that my apartment wasn't a hotel or a financial safety net. She became angry, saying I didn't care about family and that I was ruining her life. My parents got involved after she called them, crying and saying I was refusing to help her in a crisis. They told me I should contribute to her rent to help family in need. I explained that I had already offered reasonable support, letting her stay temporarily and helping brainstorm solutions, but that I couldn't commit to paying her rent indefinitely. They were frustrated and implied I was being harsh, which made me feel guilty. Emma began leaving passive-aggressive notes, making comments about my lack of compassion, and posting on social media about how her sister was refusing to help her in her time of need without naming me directly. I try to maintain my boundaries while still being polite and supportive in conversation, but every gesture I made was either rejected or criticized. I also noticed my own stress levels rising. I was having trouble focusing at work, my sleep was disrupted, and my home felt chaotic and crowded. I felt trapped between wanting to help my sister and protecting my mental health and personal space. When I reiterated that I couldn't cover her rent or host her indefinitely, Emma became distant and resentful, and our relationship has been tense ever since. Friends and coworkers are divided. Some say I should just pay to avoid family drama, while others say I'm right to maintain boundaries and protect my life. I genuinely wanted to help Emma, but I also know that enabling her to stay without limits or expectations wouldn't be healthy for either of us. So, AITA for refusing to cover my sister's rent after she moved back in with me unexpectedly. AITA for telling my sister she can't use my house for her wedding after she completely disregarded my boundaries. This is going to be long, so I'll try to organize it clearly. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Lily, 28F, and our relationship has always been a little rocky but manageable. We grew up in a small town, and after college, I moved to a different city and bought a house there about 5 years ago. I'm very proud of my home. It's small but cozy, and I've put a lot of time, money, and effort into making it my personal sanctuary. I have a low tolerance for chaos, people overstaying their welcome, and situations that feel out of control. My sister, on the other hand, has always been more spontaneous and less considerate about other people's space or plans. About 6 months ago, Lily got engaged. I was genuinely happy for her and supportive, but she immediately started talking about having her wedding at my house. She claimed it would be perfect because of the backyard, the lighting, and the general vibe. At first, I laughed it off, assuming she was joking because my house is really small. I mean, my living room can barely fit 10 people comfortably. I told her, "You do know I can't host your entire wedding here, right? There's not even space for tables and chairs." But she brushed it off and kept insisting, saying she could make it work. She also started dropping hints that I could just figure something out and that it would be a great family bonding moment. I tried to explain multiple times that my house isn't set up for events like that and that it would be stressful and expensive for me, but she seemed determined. Fast forward a few weeks, she starts contacting a bunch of local vendors and asking if my house is available for booking. I told her directly that she cannot use my house for a wedding, and she got upset, saying I was ruining her dream wedding and that I was being selfish. She kept trying to negotiate, offering to pay for catering and flowers and even cleaning services afterward. I told her it's not about money. It's about me being comfortable in my own home and not being responsible for the chaos of a wedding. I even offered to help her find a suitable venue in the city, but she refused, saying my house is practically perfect. Things escalated when she invited her fiancé and some family members over to my house without asking, claiming it was to measure the space for the wedding setup. I was home that day, and I told them firmly that no, they cannot be in my house without my permission and that the house is not a venue. They argued that I'm being unreasonable, and I ended up locking myself in my bedroom for a while just to have some peace. After they left, I texted Lily saying she needed to respect my boundaries. She responded by accusing me of being controlling and unsupportive, and she blocked me on social media. A few days later, I got calls from a few of her friends and extended family members, asking why I won't let her have her wedding at my house. I explained the situation politely, but it became clear that Lily had been telling people I was being selfish and cruel and refusing to help her on her big day. I started feeling guilty because some of our mutual friends were now giving me the cold shoulder or making comments like, "You should let her do this. It's not that hard." But I still feel strongly that my home is my sanctuary and that it's completely reasonable for me to say no. Since then, Lily hasn't spoken to me. Our parents are caught in the middle, telling me that I should compromise just this once because it's her wedding, but I can't shake the feeling that they don't really understand how stressful it would be for me. I've offered to help with other parts of the wedding, like invitations, planning, or even helping with decorations at a different venue, but she refuses. She keeps saying that if I truly cared about her, I would let her use my house. Honestly, I'm exhausted by the whole situation. I love my sister, and I want her to have a beautiful wedding, but I also need to protect my home and my mental health. I feel like if I give in now, it will set a precedent where she feels entitled to my space for every big life event. I'm also upset that she went behind my back and involved other family members and friends, making me look like the villain. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding, even though she keeps insisting and trying to pressure me into it. Some extra context. My backyard is maybe big enough for 15 people sitting in chairs. Any larger crowd would be impossible without renting a bunch of tables and tents. I have a dog who gets extremely anxious around strangers and loud noises. A wedding would be a nightmare for him. I've spent the past 2 months fixing up my garden and repainting my living room. I don't want a bunch of people trampling it or leaving messes I'll have to clean up. I have told her multiple times that it's not about money. It's about comfort, personal boundaries, and mental health. I keep questioning myself, wondering if I'm being unreasonable or selfish. Part of me feels guilty for not giving in, but another part of me feels proud that I'm standing up for my personal space. The situation is currently very tense. My parents have suggested a family meeting, but I'm worried it will just turn into a blame game. Lily hasn't reached out to apologize, and I'm not sure if she ever will. I don't want to completely ruin our relationship, but I also can't compromise on this. So, AITA for standing my ground and refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding. Character count, 6,586 if you want. I can create 2 more long stories in the same style, each with a unique conflict and drama, so you'd have a mini collection of viral-style AITA stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have always had a close relationship with my younger sister, Mia, 25F. Growing up, we were inseparable, shared clothes, secrets, and even our childhood pets. As adults, we stayed close despite living in different cities, with weekly calls and yearly visits. I've always considered Mia one of my best friends. So, when she announced she was getting married, I was genuinely happy for her, at least initially. Mia's fiancé, Jason, 30M, however, has been a point of contention for me since they started dating about 2 years ago. From the beginning, I noticed little things that made me uneasy. He could be controlling in subtle ways, like correcting how Mia talks or making decisions for her without asking. At first, I brushed it off as them just being a couple and figured I was overreacting. But over time, his behavior became harder to ignore. There was the time at her birthday dinner last year when Jason insisted that Mia not order a dessert she wanted because it wasn't healthy, and then proceeded to lecture her for 10 minutes in front of the entire restaurant about making better choices. There was another occasion when he told her she shouldn't visit me for the weekend because she owed him her time that weekend, even though we had been planning it for months. Each time, Mia seemed frustrated but didn't push back because she didn't want to fight with him. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Mia asked me to be a bridesmaid, which I was initially thrilled about. But as the planning went on, I started noticing more things that set off alarms. Jason has been trying to control the guest list, the seating arrangements, and even the menu. Mia mentioned that he got upset when she suggested her childhood best friend could have a seat at the head table. I tried to remain neutral, telling her to communicate her feelings to him, but she often dismissed my advice, saying she didn't want to fight before the wedding. Things came to a head a few weeks ago. I was visiting Mia at her apartment for a weekend, and Jason was there as well. Mia had confided that she felt anxious about some of the wedding plans, and I offered to help her brainstorm solutions. Jason, who had been quietly listening, suddenly snapped and said that she didn't need anyone's help because he had everything under control. When I tried to explain that I just wanted to help my sister, he laughed and said I was being dramatic and overstepping. That evening, Mia and I had a long heart-to-heart after he left the room. She admitted that she sometimes felt suffocated by Jason, but was scared to speak up because she didn't want to risk conflict before the wedding. She also admitted that she felt guilty for asking me to be a bridesmaid, while knowing that I didn't get along with Jason. I told her that while I loved her and wanted to support her, I couldn't participate in an event where I felt my presence might cause tension or where I would feel like I was enabling behavior I disagreed with. After much discussion, I told her that I would not attend the wedding if Jason was there. I offered alternatives like helping with planning from a distance or attending the rehearsal dinner only if it didn't include him. Mia was very upset. She accused me of being dramatic, selfish, and even manipulative, claiming that I was putting my discomfort above her happiness. She also said that I was disrespecting her relationship and trying to control who she married. I haven't spoken to her in over a week. Our family has been split down the middle. Some support my concerns about Jason, and others think I'm overreacting. My parents are hurt because they feel like this could permanently damage my relationship with Mia. Meanwhile, I feel conflicted because I love my sister and want to be part of her special day, but I can't ignore the behavior I've witnessed from Jason. I want to be clear that I'm not trying to ruin Mia's wedding or be confrontational, but I genuinely fear that attending would create a situation where I might say or do something I regret because of how uncomfortable I feel around him. I've tried talking to Mia about my concerns multiple times, but she insists I should get over it for her wedding. I'm stuck between my love for my sister and my personal boundaries. I know some people might say that I should just attend for her sake, but I don't know if I can be around someone who I feel has been consistently controlling and dismissive toward the person I care about most. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. AITA for refusing to let my stepson move in with us because his father is trying to force it. I, 34F, have been married to Chris, 36M, for 4 years. Chris has a son, Ethan, 15M, from a previous marriage. I've always tried to have a good relationship with Ethan, and most of the time it's been fine. He's a good kid, smart, and funny. But like most teenagers, he can be moody and challenging at times. Chris and I live in a small 3-bedroom house. Our daughter, 2F, also lives with us, so the space is tight, but we make it work. For the last couple of years, Ethan has primarily lived with his mom, Karen, and has weekends with Chris. We've always respected this arrangement because it seems fair and keeps some balance between the parents. About 3 months ago, Karen told Chris that she couldn't handle Ethan living with her full-time anymore because of her work schedule and personal issues. She asked Chris if he could take Ethan full-time. Chris naturally agreed without asking me first. That's when the tension started. Chris came home one evening and casually mentioned that Ethan would be moving in with us in a month. I froze. I told him we needed to talk because our house isn't really set up for another teenager. Ethan would be sharing a room with our daughter temporarily. Our finances would stretch further than planned, and honestly, I felt like I hadn't been consulted at all about a huge life change. Chris told me he didn't see why it was a problem and that I just had to adjust because Ethan is his son and needs a home. I tried explaining that I'm not against Ethan living with us, but the suddenness and lack of planning was overwhelming. I asked for at least a discussion about schedules, finances, and house rules, but Chris brushed it off. He said I was being selfish and that Ethan's mother was dropping the responsibility on him, so I needed to step up. I pointed out that this wasn't about refusing responsibility. It's about doing it thoughtfully and making sure it works for everyone in the household. Things escalated when Chris started making changes unilaterally, like buying a bigger bed for Ethan and moving some of our furniture to make space in the guest room. He seemed to assume I would just go along with it. I told him that I wouldn't agree to Ethan moving in under these conditions, and that if he wanted to take Ethan full-time, we needed to discuss and plan it together. Chris got angry, saying I was creating drama for no reason and trying to control everything in the house. A week later, I spoke directly with Ethan. I explained that I wasn't against him living with us long-term, but we needed to figure out how it would work so that everyone could be comfortable. I didn't want him to feel unwelcome, but I also wanted him to understand that our house isn't magically expandable overnight. Ethan seemed upset but understanding. He told me he wanted to come live with us because he didn't get along with his mom, but he didn't want to cause fights between Chris and me. That made me feel even worse because I don't want him to feel guilty. Chris's reaction to my stance has been really difficult. He's been distant, resentful, and makes passive-aggressive comments about me not supporting my stepson. He's even started telling friends and family that I don't care about Ethan's well-being, which isn't true at all. I've tried to explain that I care deeply about him, but I also have boundaries and responsibilities in this household. Our daughter's needs also play a big role. She's still very young, and suddenly adding a teenage boy to her day-to-day environment could be disruptive. I've tried to explain that this is not about exclusion, but about creating a safe and comfortable home for everyone, including Ethan. Some friends have told me I should just let Ethan move in because he's Chris's son and that family should come first. Others have said I'm right to insist on planning and boundaries. I feel torn. I want to support Chris and Ethan, but I also don't want to compromise the stability of our home or my own voice in decisions that affect my family. I suggested temporary solutions, like having Ethan stay every other weekend for a few months until we figure out logistics, or even having Chris find a compromise with Karen, but Chris insists it has to be permanent immediately. He says if I don't agree, he'll move Ethan in any way, which makes me feel powerless. Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my stepson move in immediately with us when his father insists, even though he says I'm being selfish and unsupportive. AITA for refusing to let my cousin's child stay with me permanently after she claimed I was the only family who could help. I, 31F, live alone in a modest two-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. I have a stable job as a software engineer, a strict budget, and a carefully curated daily routine. I value my independence and the quiet that comes with living alone. My extended family knows that I'm self-reliant, and while I've always been willing to help in emergencies, I have strict boundaries about long-term commitments that would disrupt my life. My cousin, Sarah, 29F, has a 6-year-old son, Alex. Sarah has a history of making impulsive decisions, quitting jobs without notice, moving across cities on short notice, and relying heavily on friends and family to solve problems. Recently, she lost her apartment due to financial difficulties after a short-lived relationship ended badly. She called me out of the blue, panicked, claiming she had nowhere to go and that I was the only family who could help. She told me Alex couldn't be in the apartment she was currently staying in because it wasn't safe. Initially, I was sympathetic. I agreed to let her and Alex stay temporarily for a week while she figured something out. I set very clear boundaries from the beginning. The arrangement was short-term. I wasn't responsible for covering rent or groceries beyond what I normally budget for myself, and I wouldn't be providing full-time childcare. Sarah assured me it would be fine and that they'd leave once she found another place. The first few days went okay, but it didn't take long for the reality to sink in. Sarah assumed that temporary meant she could leave Alex with me whenever she wanted. She expected me to pick him up from school, entertain him, and even help with his homework. She also left a lot of her belongings in my living room and kitchen, some of which were fragile or expensive. I asked her to keep things organized and respect my space, but she dismissed it as just temporary and insisted I was overreacting. By the second week, Sarah started asking me to cover some of her bills, arguing that she hadn't expected the eviction and that I had the means to help. I explained that I had my own expenses and could not take on her financial responsibilities. She became visibly frustrated and started guilt-tripping me, saying, "I can't believe you'd let Alex go through this. You're his family too." I reminded her that I was willing to help temporarily and that she had other options: friends, social services, or even short-term rentals. She refused to consider any of them. Things escalated when Sarah began inviting other friends over to my apartment to help with Alex, without asking me first. I came home one evening to find 3 adults in my living room, loud music playing and Alex running around unsupervised. I told her this was unacceptable and that she needed to check with me before bringing anyone over. She accused me of being controlling and said that I didn't care about Alex's well-being. The breaking point came when she informed me that she intended to stay indefinitely and that Alex would be living with me full-time. She framed it as helping the child and implied that refusing was tantamount to being selfish. I reiterated that I had never agreed to a permanent arrangement and that my apartment wasn't set up for long-term childcare. I also explained that my work schedule and personal life would be impossible to manage under these circumstances. She became angry, raising her voice and saying that I was turning my back on family and that I was letting everyone down. I reached out to my parents for advice. They told me that family helps each other and suggested I at least let her stay a little longer. I explained that I had already been accommodating, helping brainstorm housing options, and watching Alex occasionally, but that I couldn't provide indefinite childcare or host Sarah without boundaries. They were sympathetic to Sarah, but ultimately understood that I was trying to maintain my own well-being. Despite this, Sarah continued to guilt-trip me, leaving passive-aggressive notes, posting vague complaints on social media, and making snide remarks when I saw her. I've been trying to help by researching affordable apartments nearby and offering financial resources for short-term stays, but she refuses to accept help that doesn't involve living with me. Alex, on the other hand, has been increasingly clingy and confused, asking me every day when he can move back with his mom. I've tried to reassure him and maintain a positive relationship, but it's stressful and emotionally draining. I genuinely feel torn. I care about Sarah and Alex, but I also recognize that enabling her to stay indefinitely would create chaos in my life, affect my work, and put a strain on my mental health. I feel like I've already helped as much as I reasonably can, but the constant pressure and guilt-tripping have made me question if I'm being selfish. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin's child stay with me permanently after she claimed I was the only family who could help. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.